With just a day to the November 11 governorship elections in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states, civil society organizations in Nigeria have put up certain mechanisms in place to detect and expose electoral fraud, relying heavily on the commitment they extracted from the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, on uploading election results on the result viewing portal, IREV. The CSOs have mapped out plans, including advising Nigerians on how to gain access to the results portal to cross-check properly whether the election is transparent or not. Accordingly, they said they were deploying process and results verification, PRV, a device that is capable of detecting fraud, as it happened in the last election, to ascertain the transparency of the polls. The CSOs are poised to deploy thousands of election observers in the states for the off-season polls, and they said they will also open a situation room in Abuja to monitor the voting, collation, and uploading of election results in Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states. Joining us now on the morning show is Yunusa Zakari, Convener, Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, and Executive Director, Center for Information Technology and Development. Good morning, Zakari, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, thank you. Well, quickly, let me just ask you, could you take us through the plans by civil society organizations and the Situation Room to monitor the off-cycle elections in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa states on Saturday, that is tomorrow, and particularly the PRV.
Yeah.
What is that all about, the PRV? How will it work? And how will it complement the process?
Right. We at the Civil Society Situation Room always monitor and observe elections in this country. And so the coming up cycle elections in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo are not an exception. We are deploying the observers across these states to monitor first the deployment and distribution of election materials. We started yesterday, and then they would continue to monitor the elections as they unfold until the final collation and announcements of results. To do that, we have deployed people on the ground, observers who deployed across different polling stations in all these states. We also have coordinating teams in all the three states located at state capitals of those states. And then we have the Situation Room Center in Abuja, where all results that would be fed in by our observers would be analyzed, compared, and then the decisions taken on the basis of what we see coming up on the results. We have also other partner organizations like YAGA, CDD, and others who are also deploying the observers, but also deploying technology to monitor the process. Now, one of the things that technology has done is to enable us to sample different polling stations and use statistical analysis and methods to project the outcome of the elections, but also to follow the transparency and the accountability of the process itself, whether INEC officials are adhering strictly to the regulations and guidelines of the election or not, and whether results are being transmitted transparently as provided by the Electoral Act, and whether those results are eventually collated and tabulated as they should be. You know, we do a parallel tabulation, and we see if there are variations, we would be able to detect those variations and see and call Nigerians to know how they can rate that election process. Of course, we also advise voters to peacefully go out and vote this cashless vote, and pay particular attention to the processes, because we as citizens, we as voters are the architects of the type of elections that we get. So if we are not vigilant, other people would make the election for us and render our votes useless, important, you know. So I think that it's a responsibility on us as voters, as citizens, to also be very vigilant and watch over our votes, watch over the process, because this election is our own election, and therefore we must make sure that everything is done right, we get it right, and that we would get results, we'll get an election that at the end of the day, all of us are proud of.
Okay, let's talk about possible flashpoints. Is your tracking itemizing, you know, specific local government areas across the three, you know, states that there might be possible flashpoints?
Well, we have observers in all the local governments. Of course, we also pay special attention to where we think incidences of violence are likely to happen. And we have done the pre-election situation analysis to understand the situation. In particular, we know that Imo and Kogi states have a predisposition to violence. We've seen that in the previous election in the 4 years ago, especially in Kogi, where people were killed during the elections. And so we have, even before the deployment of observers, we have done the critical analysis of that. And one of the things that we paid attention to is that the safety of our observers is critical. Safety and protection of election materials and election officials is also important, you know. So we are working with security organizations, particularly the police and other law enforcement agencies, to ensure that when we pick signals about any likelihood of incidents, we would alert relevant agencies, and we expect that they would work on the information and try to apprehend the situation so that the situation will not degenerate into violent engagements in those particular areas. Of course, our duty is to alert and to provide information. We do not have the force to prevent or to act, and so we expect that the law enforcement agencies would promptly use this information so that the situation would be neutralized and election would go on peacefully wherever the likely infractions appear to be rearing its head.
Okay, Dr. Yao, let me ask you about your assessment of the level of preparedness of the major stakeholders. The military say they are ready and that they will show strength against any attempt to disrupt the process in those three states. The DSS has issued a statement, in fact, even telling civil society groups not to inflame sentiments, because there was a line in the statement by the Department of State Services for civil society groups to also behave properly tomorrow. Then, of course, the Inspector General of Police has appointed another Commissioner of Police for Imo State in particular, and he has deployed about 27 Assistant Inspectors General of Police. Just generally, your assessment. And INEC, of course, says it is ready. All sensitive and non-sensitive materials have been deployed. The beavers has been reconfigured, and that materials will arrive on time.
Yeah, first of all, let me make this statement very clear. Civil society has never been the agent of causing violence or destructions during elections in this country. Civil society has always worked to ensure that campaigns are violence-free, elections are violence-free, and so our contributions as citizens, as organizations of concerned Nigerians who are patriotic, it's always to contribute to peaceful conduct of elections. I think that historically, politicians and governments have always been the instigators of violence in this country. And that the role of law enforcement agencies who are supposed to ensure that violence does not take place has often been compromised in this country. Yes, we have heard that they are ready, they are prepared to ensure that there is no violence in these elections. But the truth of the matter is that sometimes this conduct itself invites or catalyzes violence in the field. You know, a military is not supposed to be visibly involved in the electoral election materials. They should be at the background. So where you bring military so visibly involved, it has the ambience to frighten citizens, and that would disenfranchise people. And when you are disenfranchised, the tendency is that you are going to take other measures that would probably be out of the laws, and that would be the instigator of violence. So for me, the real manufacturers of violence are actually government and these agencies, that if they don't conduct themselves the way that citizens expect them to do, then citizens are likely to manufacture this on counter responses, and it's always during those counter responses that you find the violence taking place. So our message has always been that we hope they are ready, we hope they will do what is expected of them, we hope they will act within the guidelines of the elections, we hope they will not be subject to undue pressures from either incumbents or from other orders from above that we have often see. This misuse of power and connections have always been the bane of our elections in this country, and not what civil society is doing. We've noted the statement by some organization, faceless organization, particularly in Imo State, saying that civil society is partisan, civil society will cause chaos. Nowhere in this country has anything has been documented to show that civil society organizations are responsible for violence. Instead, that we have seen document after document, reports after reports in this country where politicians, where governments, sitting governments have used this incumbency to oppress voters, to suppress voting, and to ensure that opponents do not have fair access to electoral processes. And that is the cause of violence in this country, and not the conduct of civil society organizations. We hope that INEC, as it assured the public, it would it's fully prepared and it would stick to the guidelines as provided. It's all the time when people are disappointed with the conduct of the electoral machineries and other relevant stakeholders, then the people get disappointed, and in the process of disappointment, sometimes violence can rear its head.
Okay, let's talk about the concerns by some political parties. In fact, they stormed out of an INEC parley the other day, and they talked about the resident electoral commissioner. Are you picking up some feelers as regards that on ground in Imo State? How do people feel about it? Are these concerns real?
Well, there are concerns, and it's not just about the rec there, but also the conduct of the state government over the last couple of days. We are worried that what happened to the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress is a high level of intolerance, and we think that the such type of intolerance could be extended to electoral processes, and that can affect the conduct and outcome of the elections. We call on INEC to adhere to the code of impartiality, neutrality, and ensure that all its staff from top to bottom are able to conduct themselves credibly with sincere impartiality to all that are concerned. I think that we take their words for what they say, and the field would determine whether they are truthful to what they say or not, whether they would adhere to what we expect them to do or not. So that is why we have observers to see how they conduct themselves in the field, in the offices, in the polling booths, and in the counting and the collation of the election results. At this time, it will be too late to talk about deployment of anybody, changing the personnel, because you have trained them, they have set up machineries. So everybody should be at his post to ensure that the elections are conducted as it should.
Well, civil society organizations, following the attack on the president of the NLC, Joe Ajero, had asked that the commissioner of police be removed. That's Mohammed Badi. And the Inspector General of Police has done that and has now appointed Danjuma Abuki as the police commissioner for Imo State. Are you satisfied with that? And then are you also pleased that the governor of Imo State, Senator Opuzodinma, was being quoted yesterday as saying that what happened to the NLC president was regrettable, and that he was apologizing because he would not wish that anybody should be attacked or treated in that manner. And that in any case, the state government had no hand in it. Do you think he's just saying that on the, just close to the election, because civil society groups and organized labor had demanded an apology immediately the incident occurred? What do you think?
First of all, we are happy that the police commissioner was redeployed, removed from that state. We take the apology offered by the governor, but that is not enough. I think that the certain criminality had taken place, and that the right thing to do is that those responsible must be fished out and be prosecuted in accordance to the laws of this country. So we think for ourselves that apologies are important, but they are not enough to persuade us to do. Where people willfully do such kind of thing, they should be made to face the legal consequences of this action. So I think that for us, what we expect to see in the next few days is not just an apology, but that those responsible are brought to the courts and answer to the judges of battery, violence, and attempted murder, because I think that beating someone could result in his death, and I think that it was deliberate, deliberately planned, deliberately executed, and I think that they should be made to pay for what they have done. I think it's not just enough to send away the commissioner of police, because he is also responsible for ensuring peace, safety of property and lives in those states, and clearly he failed in that. And so it's not just enough to just deploy him. He must also answer for his lack of control of the situation. I think that we can always accept apology, but we must understand what they are. I think this is when the governor said his government was not responsible. So who was responsible? That means that he knows who are responsible, and therefore it's his responsibility now to tell us, the people, and show us the people who have actually done that. Because if you say you are not, and you are the chief security officer of that state, you know, they mean that he has a counter information available at his disposal, you know. So just as he apologized, I think that he should come up clean with that information so that public doubt would be dispersed. We know exactly who the people who did it, and therefore we can focus our attention on ensuring that those people who did this murderous engagement would face the consequences of the thing that they have done.
Okay, so with this strike in Imo, how has it affected your people on ground?
Our people have already been deployed since before yesterday. Most of the observers are actually people who are living in those respective states, you know. So they are not people who will travel from Maiduguri or from Lagos to Imo State. There are people who are already there, who know the terrain, and therefore, you know, when you want to monitor election, you must also have people who are on the ground, who know the terrain, who know the area, who know the places, you know, so that you don't get lost in trying to locate where the polling station is, where is the place you are supposed to go. You know, so in that situation, the closure of airports does not affect our own observers. Now, the people coordinating team that we sent them to 3 days ago. The reason is that we also wanted them to be on the ground to observe the distribution of election materials, because that is part of the process of the election. You know, where election materials are not properly distributed or they are delayed, they are likely to impact on the conduct of the election. So we want to make sure that we observe that important or significant step in the process of the election. And so they have been there, and therefore the act of closure of the airport yesterday have no consequence on our deployment plans.
Well, Dr. Yao, can you put a figure to the number of observers that the Situation Room has deployed in those states, if you have the figures? And then maybe talk about security arrangements for them. Because clearly, as you yourself pointed out, there are flashpoints in Imo, in Kogi, and even in Bayelsa, particularly in the distant riverine areas. Any special attempt, you know, some kind of attempt to liaise maybe with the security agencies to ensure that observers are protected?
Yeah, okay. So in terms of number, I think we have over 1,000 or plus, I think roughly around 500 in each of these states. And that exclude observers from other partner organizations that have also independently deployed this on the observers, but who are working together as partners, as people who have common interests of ensuring that we have a free, credible, and peaceful elections in those 3 states. Now, with respect to working with them, to ensuring the safety of our observers, what we have done was that as soon as our teams, the coordinating teams, arrive at the 3 states, Lokoja in Kogi State, Imo, and Bayelsa, we ask them to go and pay special courtesy visit to the Commissioner of Police and to other relevant security enforcement agencies, intimate them of our plan to deploy the observer across those states, and solicit this own cooperation to ensure that the safety of our observers, including those who will be staying in hotels, so that these hotels are properly protected against any possible violence that might take place. But we have also conducted training on our own observers on safety and security. That we first say that when we deploy you, your life is the first thing that you observe, and therefore you must pay special attention to your own personal safety. You know, don't endanger your life. because it's only when you are alive that you can monitor election, and only when you are alive that election means anything to you as an individual, you know. So we take them through safety tips, awareness, and how they can predict, analyze, scan the environment, and see whether there are any sign of danger in this location, and therefore quickly contact relevant agencies, including our own contact points, you know, so that there is information, and that information will be escalated to different levels of actualization, of taking action to ensure that people are safe and election process is also secured.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. YZ Yawu, convener of the Civil Society Situation. Thank you for joining us.